clears throat, leans into the camera with an intense, slightly bewildered expression. Hello and welcome to the show. Tonight we're talking about international trade, which I know sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry on a particularly uninspired wall. But stick with me because this story has everything. A world leader with the diplomatic finesse of a rhinoceros in a china shop, a plucky underdog nation turning the tables, and $100 billion. That's right, $100 billion. We are, of course, talking about Donald Trump's tariffs and how they were supposed to bring America back to the forefront. But instead, they seem to have accidentally supercharged India's global export strategy, creating a $100 billion shockwave that has America looking, well, a little bit foolish. This isn't just a dry economic report. It's a geopolitical chess match where every move has dramatic and often hilarious unintended consequences. It's the story of how trying to bully a nation into submission can spectacularly backfire, pushing them into the arms of new and sometimes surprising partners. It's a tale of resilience, strategic genius, and the kind of economic judo that makes you want to stand up and cheer. Or, at the very least, nod thoughtfully while sipping your tea. So if you're a fan of intricate geopolitics, mind-bending economics, or you just get a little thrill from watching a well-laid, if slightly arrogant plan crumble into dust, then you are in exactly the right place. Do us a favor, hit that like button with the force of an unexpected 25% tariff, and subscribe for more deep dives into the glorious chaos of our modern world. You won't regret it. Probably. Right. Let's kick things off with our number one destination, the United Arab Emirates. The UAE isn't just a partner, it's the absolute crown jewel in India's $100 billion strategy. We're talking about a flood of gems, jewelry, petroleum products, and services, with exports rocketing up by 20%. And when did this surge happen? Right after Trump's administration, in August 2018, decided to slap a 25% tariff on a whole host of goods. It's like trying to put out a fire with a can of gasoline. The 2017 Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, was already the kindling, but Trump's tariffs were the match that set the whole thing ablaze, exploding trade between the two. Now, if that wasn't enough, in 2023, they updated the deal to create a gold corridor, which is a phrase that sounds like it was invented for a James Bond villain's lair. This effectively turned Dubai into India's primary re-export hub for precious metals, completely sidestepping US financial oversight. And here's the real kicker, the scoop that should have Wall Street sweating. In April 2023, India and the UAE launched a direct rupee dirham settlement system. Yes, they're cutting out the middleman, and in this case, the middleman is the US dollar itself. This is a masterclass in de-dollarization, a move designed to make them immune to American financial penalties. And the ultimate shock for America? It's all about oil. The UAE, traditionally a key player in the global energy market, began pivoting to Indian refined petroleum products. Think about that. Trump's tariffs were meant to protect American industry, but they ended up pushing a key ally to buy refined oil from India, which in turn diminishes the market for US energy exports. It's a strategic masterstroke. India didn't just find a new customer, it found a partner to fundamentally challenge the very architecture of American economic dominance. That's not just backfiring, that's the car exploding, rolling down a hill and landing in the CEO's swimming pool. Okay, next up is a country that will make you do a double take. China. Yes, that China. The one with whom India has had some, let's call them spicy, border disagreements. Despite the geopolitical tension that could cut glass, India's exports to its massive neighbor are projected to hit a staggering $20 billion in 2023. This isn't just a business deal. It's a bold, almost audacious move in this $100 billion plan. The main exports are pharmaceuticals, raw materials, and electronics, which saw a 15% jump right after Trump's tariff war with Beijing went into overdrive. It seems nothing brings two rivals together quite like a common adversary with a penchant for economic bludgeoning. Here's the truly shocking educational point. Trump's crusade, which included slapping an extra 25% on Chinese goods in December 2018 and extending those policies through 2023, was designed to isolate China. Instead, it inadvertently fostered an India-China rapprochement. Suddenly, those border de-escalation talks in August 2023 look a lot more connected to trade, don't they? Then, in June, a new bilateral pact was quietly signed, allowing Indian active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, to flow directly into China's massive pharma industry. This brilliantly bypasses US sanctions and supply chain restrictions, creating a self-contained ecosystem. And this is where the backfire truly scorches America. The entire strategic goal was to decouple the US economy from China and hobble its growth. But what happened? The tariffs pushed these two regional giants into each other's arms, spawning joint ventures in technology and manufacturing that directly erode America's competitive lead. The policy that was meant to divide and conquer has ended up bridging gaps and fostering collaboration between America's two biggest competitors. It's so dramatic, so perfectly ironic, you'd think it was written by a Shakespearean tragicomedian. Bravo, Donald, bravo. And now, for a European twist. Our next country is the Netherlands, which might seem like a random choice until you realize it's India's strategic beachhead into the entire European Union. We're looking at a cool $15 billion in Indian exports for 2023, and it's not just tulips and cheese. We're talking heavy-duty stuff, petroleum products, industrial chemicals, and sophisticated engineering goods. The Netherlands is home to the port of Rotterdam, the largest port in Europe, which essentially acts as a giant distribution center, re-exporting Indian goods across the continent. Trump's tariffs didn't just annoy India. They accelerated its pivot towards a much more welcoming European market. The breaking news that really cements this relationship came in July 2023. India and the EU, with the Netherlands acting as a key facilitator, made significant headway on a free trade agreement. The goal? To have it done by the end of the year, slashing duties on over 90% of product lines. This is a direct and powerful countermeasure to Trump's 25% tariff hit on Indian imports. While America was busy building walls, India was busy building bridges, or in this case, superhighways for cargo ships. It's a classic case of one door closing and another, much larger European door swinging wide open. And here's the educational twist that adds another layer of delicious irony. The ongoing energy crisis in Europe has caused Dutch demand for Indian renewable energy components to surge by an incredible 30%. But it gets better. Major US exporters like Exxon are now losing significant European market share for refined oils to their Indian competitors. The shock to the American system is palpable. The tariffs, designed to protect American producers, have ended up creating and strengthening a formidable competitor that is now eating America's lunch in one of its most lucrative markets. It's like watching a chess game where one player thinks they're setting a clever trap, only to realize they've checkmated themselves. Let's bring it closer to home now, with our neighbor Bangladesh. It ranks surprisingly high in this strategy, projected to absorb $12 billion in Indian exports in 2023. This isn't just a friendly neighborhood transaction. It's a critical part of the $100 billion shockwave. India is sending over a torrent of textiles, machinery, and pharmaceuticals. The educational angle here is the beautiful symbiosis. Bangladesh's world-beating garment industry, the one that makes a lot of your clothes, is utterly dependent on Indian yarn, fabrics, and dyes. This creates an incredibly strong, tariff-proof relationship that benefits both sides immensely. Now let's connect the dots back to our favorite topic, tariffs. Remember Trump's tariff hike in August 2018? It led to a diplomatic spat where India retaliated by pausing some planned US arms purchases. This, in turn, forced New Delhi to look elsewhere to offload its industrial output. And guess who was right there with open arms? Bangladesh. This isn't just a theory, it's backed by action. In a key update from March 2023, India extended a massive $2 billion credit line to Bangladesh specifically for infrastructure projects. This isn't charity, it's brilliant, smart economics, ensuring that the cement, steel, and machinery for those projects come from, you guessed it, India. And here is the shock to the American system, the part that hits you right in the wallet. Bangladesh's booming economy, growing at a steady 7%, is the perfect sponge for Indian surplus goods that are now blocked from the US market. As a result, major US apparel brands like Gap and H&M, who rely on Bangladeshi factories, are facing higher input costs because the supply chains have reoriented eastward. This could very well lead to price inflation for clothes back in the States. It's a perfect, if painful, reminder that tariffs are not a surgical tool. They are a boomerang, and they often come back to smack the thrower's own consumers right in the face. Next on our list is the tiny titan of trade, the little red dot that packs a massive economic punch, Singapore. It is an absolutely pivotal piece of India's strategy, with exports climbing to a respectable $10 billion in 2023. What are they buying? A sophisticated mix of electronics, heavy machinery, and, crucially, services. Here's the informative insight you need to grasp. Singapore isn't just a customer, it's a gateway. It's the central nervous system for trade in the entire Asia-Pacific region. When India sells to Singapore, it's really selling to half the world. And of course, this relationship was put on steroids by American policy. Amid Trump's constant threats of a 25% tariff, which became a reality for many goods in August 2018, New Delhi didn't panic. Instead, it quietly and methodically ramped up its Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, or CECA, with Singapore. This culminated in a fresh update in May 2023, a moment that should be studied in business schools. India signed an addendum to the agreement that allows for zero-tariff access for digital services. The result? Indian software exports to and through Singapore exploded by 40%. This is the new frontier of trade, and India is conquering it. This is where the backfire singes Silicon Valley. India's IT giants, like TCS and Infosys, are now strategically basing their regional operations in Singapore, allowing them to service global clients while completely skirting US duties. American tech firms are now finding themselves outbid on major contracts, losing out to nimbler Indian-Singaporean joint ventures, particularly in cutting-edge fields like AI and fintech. A shocking statistic to illustrate the point: Singapore's re-exports of Indian goods to the US actually dropped 15% after the tariffs. But direct India to Asia trade, facilitated by Singapore, absolutely soared. It's engaging because it's a perfect example of how a small, smart nation can amplify a larger nation's global punch, all thanks to a poorly aimed tariff. Let's jet over to South America, where the samba rhythms of Brazil are dancing to an Indian beat. The continent's behemoth slots in with a projected $8 billion in Indian exports for 2023, a very significant slice of the $100 billion pie. Now, what is India selling? Not soybeans or aircraft parts, but a potent cocktail of petroleum products, pharmaceuticals, and industrial chemicals. This trade has seen a healthy 12% uptick since Trump's tariff escalation in August 2018. This isn't a coincidence, it's a consequence. Here's the deep dive. As fellow members of the BRICS bloc, India and Brazil share a long history of wanting to create a world that isn't so utterly dominated by the West. Trump's policies, especially the unspecified penalties he tacked onto the 25% tariff in retaliation for India's continued relationship with Russia, didn't drive a wedge between them. No, it acted like geopolitical superglue, tightening their bond. Just look at the news from July 2023. The two nations launched a joint biofuel initiative. It's a brilliant scheme where Indian technology helps Brazil refine its ethanol more efficiently, which in turn boosts India's exports of related engineering goods. This is where the shock to America becomes acute, particularly for its pharmaceutical and agricultural sectors. As Brazil's economy rebounds to a respectable 2.5% growth in 2023, India's affordable generic medicines are flooding Brazilian pharmacies, systematically undercutting the market share of US pharma giants like Pfizer. And the bigger looming threat? Trump's tariffs were meant to bring manufacturing jobs home, but they're pushing allies like Brazil directly into India's camp. This could easily disrupt massive US soybean exports to Brazil if retaliatory measures kick in. It's a classic textbook case of unintended consequences, where tariffs designed to protect one industry end up isolating the nation and endangering another. Indonesia, the sprawling, archipelagic giant of Southeast Asia. It might not be the most obvious partner, but India's export plan is weaving an intricate web of opportunity here, worth an estimated $6 billion in 2023. That's a key piece of the $100 billion puzzle. What's on the shipping manifests? A diverse mix of textiles, pharmaceuticals, and auto parts, and the growth is staggering. The Indian Commerce Ministry reported a whopping 18% jump in the first quarter of 2023 alone. This isn't a trickle, it's a flood. Here's the informative fact that makes it all click. Indonesia's economy, a behemoth projected to hit $1.2 trillion in GDP this year, is in the middle of a manufacturing boom. And to fuel that boom, it needs imports, lots of them. India's low-cost, high-quality exports are the perfect solution, filling the gap at the exact moment Trump's trade tantrums were making U.S. goods more complicated and expensive. Remember, the 25% blanket tariff on Indian goods announced in July 2018 wasn't just a business decision. It was meant to punish New Delhi. Instead, it acted as a catalyst, forcing India to accelerate its outreach to its ASEAN neighbors. And the shocking 2023 update proves the strategy is working. In June, India and Indonesia upgraded their comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, slashing duties on over 1,000 different items. This is a direct, calculated counterpunch to U.S. protectionism. This deal doesn't just boost Indian exports. It educates us on how emerging markets are now building their own trade ecosystems, free from Western interference. They're even swapping Indonesian palm oil for Indian machinery, creating a balanced barter-like trade that America simply can't meddle in. The backfire? U.S. industrial giants like Caterpillar are visibly losing ground on major Indonesian infrastructure projects to Indian competitors like Tata and Mahindra, costing potential American jobs. It's a powerful lesson. Tariffs don't isolate your rivals. They inspire them to innovate new alliances. Finally, we arrive at a destination that might surprise you: Saudi Arabia. When you think of India's export partners, the oil-rich kingdom might not be top of your list. But in 2023, it has emerged as a formidable powerhouse ally in India's $100 billion blueprint. Bilateral trade was already healthy, hovering around $40 billion annually. But things have gone into hyperdrive. India's exports to the kingdom surged by an incredible 25% in just the first half of 2023, on track to easily clear $10 billion for the year. And this surge is fueled by petroleum products, chemicals, and engineering goods. So what lit the fuse on this explosion of trade? You guessed it, our old friend, the tariff. Trump's tariffs, which hit Indian steel and aluminum particularly hard starting in July 2018, were the shove that pushed New Delhi to double down on its relationships in the Middle East. And here's the crucial educational nugget: Saudi Arabia's vision. 2030 plan is all about diversifying its economy away from oil. India fits into that vision like a key in a lock, supplying the affordable machinery for new factories and the low-cost generic pharmaceuticals that can undercut expensive US drug prices for its growing population. The most recent update, from August 2023, is where this gets truly strategic. India and Saudi Arabia inked a new energy pact. This isn't just about buying and selling crude. It allows Indian refineries to process Saudi crude and then re-export the value-added products, like gasoline and plastics. This is a genius move that helps India dodge US penalties related to its Russian oil purchases, which Trump had tacked on. The backfire for America is profound. Analysts warn that this is strengthening an India-Saudi axis, which could pull Riyadh further away from US influence, especially within OPEC. Imagine a scenario where US consumers are paying more for gas and imported goods, all while India and Saudi Arabia are racking up billions in a cozy new partnership. That's not just a tariff twist, it's a geopolitical pretzel. And there you have it. That was our countdown of the 8 countries at the heart of India's stunning economic pivot. This $100 billion export surge isn't just a set of impressive numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a loud and clear testament to resilience. It's a story of a nation that, when faced with economic walls in the form of tariffs, didn't just try to climb over them. It decided to build a series of magnificent new doors leading everywhere else. It's a powerful narrative about turning a threat into a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, proving that in the world of global trade, agility can be more powerful than aggression. In 2023, with India's exports to just these 8 nations hitting a record $100 billion despite global economic headwinds, the verdict is in. Donald Trump's protectionist policies have, in a deeply ironic twist, backfired spectacularly. Instead of isolating India or forcing it into compliance, they have acted as a powerful catalyst, accelerating its integration with new partners and strengthening the push towards a more multipolar world trade system. America wanted to be the undisputed king, but its actions may have simply created more regional princes who are now happily trading amongst themselves. Thank you very much. So, what do you think? Is this a temporary shift? Or are we witnessing a permanent reshaping of global economic alliances? Will this diversification strategy make India a true global powerhouse? Drop your thoughts, theories, and furious disagreements in the comments below. We read them all, especially the angry ones. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs a lesson in unintended consequences, and stay tuned for our next deep dive. Thanks for watching.